laughing. Giggle. Gaggle, the gaggle of geese flying across the sky. Goggles, he's wearing goggles when he's swimming in the ocean to protect his eyes. Oh, you can look it up on Google at any time. So these are words that all have a similar sound, but a totally different meaning. That's why practice is important when it comes to words like this, so that you can pronounce them correctly. You know, gargle, you don't say it every day, but it happens. A gaggle, not every day. Giggle, every day in this class. Somebody's giggling. And Google, everybody knows Google. But it's just to give you an idea that these are the types of things that you run into with English. Giggle, gaggle, gargle, google, google. It sounds like a strange language, but it's 5 different words. Any questions about the words? Giggle? Stop giggling, please. Okay. Giggle. She's always giggling in class. I don't know why. And there was one other expression in connection with the Saudi Arabian thing that I'll just go over briefly. Jump to conclusions. What does that mean? The Saudi Arabian government wrote a letter to the President of the United States this week about the missing journalist. And they said, thank you, Mr. President, for not jumping to conclusions. Jumping to conclusions. It's something you hear quite often. In fact, in the letter from the Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia to the President of the United States just this week, he wrote, jump to conclusions. What does that mean? Jump to conclusions. Conclusions. Well, jump to conclusions. For example, I understand that my friend missed his flight from Bangkok to Singapore at 6 o'clock this morning. Something went wrong. He missed his 6 a.m. flight from Bangkok to Singapore. And you tell your friend that, your friend says, oh, he must have overslept. Oh yeah, well, that could have happened because 6 o'clock in the morning, he might not have gotten up in time. And instead of getting up at 4 o'clock, he got up at 5:15 in the morning. He overslept and he couldn't make it to the airport. So, he missed his flight. Oh, he overslept. Jumped to conclusions. When in fact, once I looked into the matter, I found out that my friend called a taxi at 4:30 in the morning, and the taxi said, I will be there in 10 minutes, sir. The taxi would be there in 10 minutes. And he waited, and he waited, and the taxi didn't come until 5:15. 45 minutes now to get to the airport. The taxi driver could not find his address. Then when he got in the taxi, he said, you must hurry, I've only got 45 minutes to go. So the taxi went off and made a wrong turn, and by the time they got to the airport, he was 15 minutes late. So, that was what I found out by going around and asking what happened. I investigated the reason why he didn't make the flight. It wasn't because he overslept. Somebody jumped up in the air down to conclusion. Oh, he overslept. When in fact, he didn't oversleep. The taxi failed him. Didn't come on time and then took the wrong road. The taxi failed, not him. So the first guy, when he said, oh, he overslept, jumped to a conclusion. He came to the end of the thing by saying he overslept. When in fact, the true conclusion was the taxi driver failed. To jump to conclusions is to give the answer without any investigation as to what really happened. So, in the letter from the Saudi government, the Prime Minister is thanking the President for not jumping to conclusions, not saying, oh, he must have been murdered by the Saudis. He went in, he didn't come out, he was murdered. And they said, no, we don't know anything, and we don't know where he went after he left. And he thanked them for not jumping to conclusions. In other words, saying he walked in, he didn't walk out, they must have killed him. Well, the Saudis are saying, no, there are other reasons, but they haven't come up with any reasons yet. And that's when they came out today and said, the interrogation has gone wrong. Well, we'll see what that means. Oh, by the way, yeah, what's wrong with that? What is wrong with that? It's spelled wrong. Teacher. Right. It's teacher James. James. James is incomplete. It should be James with an S. James.
No other James that no S, right?
Never heard of it in my life. There might be somebody somewhere in the world named James, but I never, it's not me, I know that. James. That's why, as I've said many times, it's so necessary to complete the word. Not James. Just the slightest S at the end makes all the difference with the words. Jump to conclude. No. Jump to conclusions. There's a lot of times, if you fail to complete the word, it doesn't have any meaning. Now, if you say, teacher, oh, here comes teacher James, well, I'll say, okay, but it's not right.
Oh, yes, not my typing, maybe someone.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh. I was jumping to conclusions. Yeah.
Another monk.
Oh, somebody else, another monk. It wasn't me, it was another monk. Oh, okay.
He prayed, not me.
Okay. They try to say that I think Suraphet did it. I'm jumping to conclusions. I did not investigate. I just said, it's got to be Suraphet. Who else would do that? But I was wrong. I didn't investigate. I didn't find out exactly what happened. I jumped to conclusions. Oh, screen? Wrong? Suraphet. No. Actually, it was another monk. Now they turned it off and corrected it later. Okay. But that's an example of what I'm talking about when you jump to conclusions. Any questions about this? Pronunciations? Giggle, gaggle, google, gargle? No, okay.
I decided very quickly. Jump to conclusion.
Yeah.
I decided very quickly.
Yeah, when you told me he was late for the 6 a.m. flight, I just quickly thought that, he overslept.
Quickly decided it.
Right. In other words, instead of investigating what actually happened, you just say, he missed a 6 o'clock in the morning flight, he overslept. He always oversleeps, so he must have overslept. Well, but when you find out he didn't oversleep, the driver from the taxi didn't come and all this and that, and it wasn't anything to do with oversleeping. So yeah, you make a quick decision without looking at all the facts. A quick decision without boom, 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 looking at everything. Just like that. Now it's corrected.
Yeah, not my mistake.
It was not his mistake. I thought if it's anybody's mistake, it's Suraphet's. But I was wrong. I jumped to conclusions. I didn't investigate. I didn't go back and then start looking at the records and seeing who typed it and what this and that.
Yeah, I'm expert in English.
Okay, there you go. Right, so it couldn't have been him.
You teach me for many years.
I know, it couldn't have been his fault. Any questions about this? Any other questions or any other thing that I've been talking about?
I get it.
You get it? Oh, got it? Good. Okay, so don't jump to conclusions, even if you think you know who did it. Okay, we'll